Today I'm bringing you my 5th project for the Jenofeve design team. This is from May 2017, and this time I'm using Jennifer's wonderful template set called Stack the Pages. This is a little set I've had for quite a while, and I use those templates over and over and over again. And I've been thinking for a while I'd really like to stack and stack and stack the pages, and so that's what I did. It makes a good sized little journal. Let me just check those measurements for you. About 4 3/4 or 12 centimetres by 6.5 or 16 centimetres approximately. And the spine is 4.5 centimetres or 1 3/4 inches. Now the size and the spine are exactly as per the template set. There's no change there. And I used the edge to edge. I didn't wrap this. The lovely material on the spine of this was underneath a cover on a knitting book that I had, that I was sending round to the Red Cross shop for them to sell, because I'm trying to clear out a lot of stuff that I really don't need anymore. And underneath, quite a plain paper cover that was well wrapped around, was this gorgeous pink fox with a red background, and I thought, like, I just have to use that for something. It's sort of plasticized. It's really quite gorgeous. And there was just enough from the front and the back cover to make the inside and the outside spine pieces for this journal. So that's what I used. For the closure, it's just a button and hat elastic, and depending on who I give this to, I was waiting to get a piece of red leather, because I've got a leather strap that I want to try that's got a cunning little connection, and I really want to try that, but I haven't found the soft red leather that I really need for it yet. So for the time being, it's just got a button and the hat elastic, which I quite like. But for a travel journal, for someone to throw in their backpack, the button and the elastic probably would be a little clumsy and catchy. And for that very reason too, I have stitched the signatures together, mainly to increase the, it's pretty heavy, all these pages, it's pretty heavy, so I wanted to add some stitching to help the adhesive keep it in one piece, because it's fairly thick paper that I've used for the pages, and I had a couple of envelopes in the middle that needed to be stitched in, so I did a hidden spine, which this little template set is ideal for. But I'll show you that that's one of the things that was quite complex getting. I had to layer up the pages and get them adhered onto the inner spine cover, and then the 2 little internal envelopes, and also this central envelope that contains the threads inside. I had to get them all lined up and in place and adhered down before I stitched, so it was a little bit tricky, but I'll show you a little tutorial on that after. I'll just quickly show you the rest of it. It's perfectly plain otherwise, but I was quite amazed at how many actual pages I was able to stack into this little journal. And the reason I used this fairly, you can just see it on the edges there, it's a sort of a metallic, it's a quill board, it's probably about 300 GSMs, and I used that for all the pages, all the page components. You can sort of see it there, the mauvey colour. I think it's called amethyst. But the reason I did that was because I wanted it, you know, once it's loaded with photos, I would really like for it to be able to be set up on its body like that, and the pages and all their gorgeous photos, once they're added, put out, so it becomes a if you like, a sort of display piece. I know it's a bit impossible, you can't really see it and it's not all that attractive from the top, but it would look quite nice on above a workbench, you know, at work, if you've been away and everyone wants to see your photos. They really could be loaded up with photographs and then put it on display. You have to fold it up from the centre. I haven't even counted how many actual pages are on this, but it does fold up very easily and neatly, and there's still plenty of room inside to put plenty of photos. Well, before I actually show you any more, I'll just show you the templates that I used. And I'll put all the details below so that you can see them. Stack the Pages mini album template, and Jen's got some wonderful tutorials on putting it all together and how to do either the wrapped spine or the edge-to-edge spine covering, depending on what materials you're using. Because I had now have got some of the black quill board, it's got a black core and it doesn't need to be wrapped, and so it was perfect to use the edge-to-edge method with. So I used, I don't know how much glare you've got, but let's get to these. The templates, page 1 is the largest page, the largest in, all the pages are actually the same size, but it's got the largest spine. So that is the first page, if you like. The second page is number 2 because its spine is slightly narrower, and the third page, which are the only 3 pages it's got, has got about 1/4 of an inch spine, and that's the smallest one. And after that comes a whole collection of side pockets, 4-page pockets, envelopes, pockets, tags, bits and pieces, belly bands. I used this double-sided tag several times, and I used the medium envelope. No, I used the large envelope, page 7. And what I did with that, I'll show you there, I made it, because it's a little, the template, page 7, is a little shorter than the pockets, and I wanted them to be the same width as the pockets pages, so it becomes like an additional page. So you can use the pocket as a page. I just cut it out, split it across the middle, and then put it on a bit of scrap paper and left about 1/2 centimetres to make that template a little wider so that I could put it into the journal and have it the same width as the pages. So that was one alteration I did. And the other alteration I did was on the side pockets. There's 2, there's a small one and a large one, and the large one fits perfectly on the largest page. That's the actual page there, and this is the larger one, or those 2. That is this 4-page pocket, but with the end flaps cut off, and using these side flaps to adhere it to the page before and the page after. This little one here fits perfectly for the centre. That's that one there. This is the original page, and this is this number 4 side pocket, the smaller of the 2. And I wanted one that fitted here on the middle page, and so that one, that's the page, this is the one I cut to, I used this side, and I just cut it down a little so that it fitted more neatly when you're adding pages to these things, you don't want them to come right up against the hinge or the edge of the book. If they come too close to that, they catch and wear very quickly. So I used this one on the first page, this one on the middle page, and this one adapted slightly shorter, just about 1 centimetre shorter, for the middle section. There you can see the double tags. That, page 8, but again I made them just a tiny bit longer so that it became the whole page, and then just hinged them in to the piece before. I haven't added eyelets to those yet because they are double-sided. You can see both sides of the eyelet, and I really don't want to put too much ribbon or anything on them because I want this to be able to be packed full of photos as much as possible. I'm waiting on a delivery of eyelets that have got a back cover on them, so that when you put them together, the back bit that's often a little bit sort of distorted and bent, sometimes it tears the metal at the back of an eyelet. I've got some coming that have got covers over them so that they'll look just as neat and tidy front and back, so I've just left those at the moment. The medium envelope I used as the centre envelope, so that's the normal size. I used that. And these little cut parts on page 10 are in, here's one, little inserts with a bit of documentation paper in them. These pockets were from an old folio society. There's only the 2 old folio society diary with wonderful photographs, and so because they're all from other places, and as this is a travel journal, I added those as well. So that's the templates. Look, the only other thing I used was from the 6x9 envelope printable journal, and I wanted to include a couple of small envies in the middle for putting bits of ephemera, tags, tickets, receipts, those sorts of things. You can pop them away and they don't fall out. So I wanted this tall upright one, and what I did for that was I adapted the envelope pattern so that it had an additional tab on this side, so that I cut one that way and one that way, and then I could just lay this, make it the bit in the middle that I wanted. I wanted it to be under 1/4 inch, and I joined it together with tape, and then I stitched it in so that these two are joined in the middle. So that's the only one I used that didn't belong to the stack the pages template. It's got plenty of room for adding things. I've added only just a few tags. This was an ephemera vintage garden tag that I'd made for something else and not used, so I basically just went through my ephemera box and added, this is a little, looks a bit like a case belt or something, so I put that there. You'll be able to tuck a photo through that or something. I've added a couple of extra large tags that are cut singly because they've got good documentation. I made just a little notebook with the cut apart from a Kaisercraft. I think it's called Wanderlust. I think that's what it's called. The trouble is with me, when I get 12 by 12 papers, I cut the identification tag off so they fit into my storage boxes, and then of course when I want to know what it is I can't remember, but it's very hard to get now anyway. This was a little bit of collaging that I'd made, so I cut it up with a paper tray ink, sort of a Polaroid type frame, and I've put some sticky, double-sided sticky on the back, and that would make a nice place to put a photograph. So I haven't put much in these. There's just, I see it more as just somewhere to collect ephemera, and I've left the pages purposely very plain, so the black ones are for photographs and glue bits, and the cream ones are for documentation or photographs or glue bits too. You can see I used a little bit of my washi tape in 2 or 3 different places. I tried to randomise that as much as I could. I've put Velcro dots on the envelopes, mainly because you don't want the bits and pieces that you collect. And there's the other little one of those pretty little note cards just in there. There's really not much else to say about it, except it's got, I suppose I should count how many pages it's got. It's just got little bits and pieces tucked away in these envelopes, but not much. As I say, I really want it to be pretty empty. There's another tag in there, so that there's plenty of room to put stuff. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So it's about 40 pages plus the envelopes that's usable inside this little journal. So the stack of pages is very stackable. I'm really happy with the outcome. It feels nice. It's one, you know how sometimes things feel right and sometimes they don't. This one feels beautiful. It's got, as I say, these will be fixed once I've got the little grommets that are supposed to be en route to me. And I'll see about making that red leather strap, because it's low profile, and if it's going in a travel bag to take away with you to use as a sort of a travel diary, then it needs something that's going to keep it together but not be obtrusive in your bag. So that's just about it. I'll show you a couple of things after this and have some photos at the end. I'm trying to keep this video a lot shorter than the last couple have been. Far too long.
Here I'm just showing you how I adapted the 6x9 envelope into a double insert for the centre of the journal. And I just cut extra tabs at the side of the little component, and then cut one up the right way and one up the wrong way so that I had them facing the same orientation. Just going through and scoring those and getting them ready to join in the centre, making sure all of the folds match up. Now that piece in the centre where I want it to join is far too wide for the little centre, the smallest spine page. I'm just checking there, and it's really only about 1/4 of an inch, so the joining, the connecting bit on both of these needs to be just under that, so that it's within the fold lines on that spine piece. So I go through and trim those extra pieces off. And lay them alongside each other, and using some red tape for a little bit of permanence, get them joined together in the centre where they'll be stitched into the spine. Normally I wouldn't think of stitching the components of a journal or a diary like this together, but because of the weight of all the pages, I thought it was just an added safety precaution to keep it well adhered. Those little side tabs were also a little wide, so I trimmed them off. They just catch on things inside the envelope if you don't get rid of them. Putting red tape on either side of those. A little bit of glue stick to give me some time to get it wrong. And there they are. I'm just rounding the bottom corner of that one so that it matches the second one a little better. Adhering up the bottoms of those envelopes. And that's them pretty much done, ready to stitch in. They're handy for putting in tickets and receipts and things. Just checking that it all fits. Now I'm just showing you while that those spine pieces settle themselves. I'm just showing you how I map all of the pages, and I do that by simply measuring each little section on its own. There are some mats that come with the templates, but they're really only suitable for the unaltered pages, and because I'd altered the size of quite a few of these and used strips of that little one at the end is just an off-cut strip that fitted on with its corners rounded, I decided it's easier just to measure the width of the piece and the length very quickly. And when I'm doing this sort of thing and there's a fair bit to get through, I generally work on top of the caterpillar because it's got a good solid base, and I can actually sort of add the pages as I'm going. I don't have to cut them out and then adhere them down. I can do it all straight on top of the caterpillar. That's the only reason I'm using it there. Decided to put another little piece of washi on. I find it very hard to be random with things. Very hard indeed. These are all scraps. Everything in this journal is just scraps. I always go through my boxes of offcuts and pull out all the bits and pieces that I think I'm going to use, and this whole journal was made with offcuts, which is good. This is the inside spine. I'm just lining up the little tick marks so that I know which is where the area for the spine piece to go on, which is the bit I'm just adhering there and putting it on. And the red tape adhesive is there to show me where the channels are next to the spine piece. Jennifer's made that all very easy, by the way. There's the main cover. That's all adhered and nice and straight. Removing a little bit of pencil. That's good to go. I had a little bit of acetate film that I found in the bottom of the box, and I thought I'll just put that down as a little tuck spot behind the map page, the map envelope. That's on the back of the journal. The front page has got that little leather frame, so they've both got a bit of a tuck spot. Now I'm going through. Now that's inside spine cover, the envelope and the little double envelope insert. And now I'm going through the pages and marking 3 holes, the centre and 1.5 inches to either side of the centre. That's so that I can know exactly where I'm going to put the stitching, because this was a little tricky. Each of the 3 pages I did the same, just find the centre mark or centre line. I only need 1 line of stitching and it's only 3 holes, so it's all very simple. Here I'm going in with my pokey tool into the telephone directory and making quite nice deep holes. I want them to be not too tiny. It's going to be hard enough getting this together without having to worry about tiny little holes. And at least I don't have to worry about the divots on this. I can just push them straight through from the top because it's a hidden hinge. They're certainly not going to be seen. There's the little double envelope being holed and the central envelope. And as I'm poking this, I realise that it's quite light, that map page, atlas page. So I put in a little bit of reinforcing just along that bottom fold line where the thread is going to be, just to give it a bit more stability. Repoking those holes through the black paper. That was just a scrap from the bin. And reinforcing those holes. The stitching was a little tricky because of all the adhesive, but not too bad really. It was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. Now I'm going through and putting the red tape onto all of those spine areas. And adhering them down to the internal spine piece. And the way I did that was to put the pokey tool through the central hole and making sure the other 2 holes were lined up. That made it quite sure that all of the holes were lined the way I wanted them to be. Made it a lot easier for sewing. I didn't have any misalignments at all. That's the smallest page, just putting in the little envelope, just using some ordinary tape for that. And finally, the last envelope. Hiding the stitching inside the spine is a good way of making sure you've got a lovely smooth spine. I mean, I quite like seeing the stitching on the outside, especially if you're going to do decorative stitches or add beads or do anything fancy to it. Sometimes even just the straight lines of stitching are very attractive on their own, but if you don't want the stitching to show, this is what you need to do. Make the spine in 2 pieces and adhere it all down with the stitching on the inside of the outside spine. Doing a double knot there, tying it off and adhering it down so that envelope is closed to hide the threads and the black reinforcing. And there it is, making sure everything turns correctly. Making sure everything was up the right way was a big problem for me. I kept several times, saved myself in the nick of time, checking that the foxes are all heading in the right direction. Being careful not to get the wet adhesive into the channels, the little 1/8 of an inch or so on either side of the central channel is important. You don't want adhesive in that. That went together pretty well. And just giving it a good burnish down because you want that adhesive to really stick. You don't want it coming apart after all that work. So that's about it. Here's some photos. There's just the outside cover with the button closure. And from the top you can see that amethysty colour of the pages and how neatly the pages are lined up, and there's the final with it partly open showing the different colours. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time. Bye.